We hadn't anticipated this number of people, so I'm very sorry that there aren't enough chairs for people all. I'd just like to welcome you all to Smarter Cambridge Transport's first ever public event. Some of you would have seen me present at other people's events. This is the first one we put on ourselves. We're really excited to have such a good turnout. Spot a few councillors amongst you, and I hope we've got many more, and I hope you will report back to your councillors about what goes on tonight. Both the parish councillors, the city councillors, the district councillors and the county councillors. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones who make decisions about what goes on. So it's really important that they understand what the options are, what your feelings are, and that you support the things that hopefully you will like when you're here tonight. So I'd like to welcome, first of all, Colin Harris, who set up Cambridge Connect. About the same time, or shortly after, we set up Smarter Cambridge Transport. And he's developed a really impressive proposal for a light rail network. So I'm going to hand you over to Colin.
Yeah, just an amazing service to the community on a voluntary basis to highlight issues and suggest alternatives to the proposals that are put forward. And this is really important for Cambridge, so I congratulate Edward on his initiative. And the topic tonight is rebooting the city deal, and I couldn't help but think that we should have been having this meeting 3 years ago, and it should have been called Booting the City Deal. I think it would have been perhaps useful if at the start we'd had community meetings like this to explore different ideas and to really exchange information about what kinds of solutions are appropriate for Cambridge. I'd also like to commend Heidi Allen, the MP for South Cambs, for taking a stand yesterday, suggesting not so much rebooting the city deal, but pressing the pause button. She suggested that because there's various things coming in the mix with devolution, etc., we really should stop and take stock and really explore long-term solutions which are enduring for Cambridge. So I commend her for that. A little bit about me. First of all, I'm not a transport engineer, so I'll put my hand up to that. And I started this initiative called Cambridge Connect just over a year ago in response to the City Deal call for evidence. The reason I started it was because I was concerned about some of the proposals that were being put forward. In particular, I was concerned that it seemed to be devoid of a long-term strategy. And also there were many elements to the proposals which didn't appear to be joined up as an integrated strategy. I work as an environmental consultant. I run a small business. I operate my business from home, and I work mainly internationally. So I'm not an expert on Cambridge transport, but I do have a background in environmental planning and spatial data systems. So I'm really coming to this as a concerned citizen, and I guess it's because I care so much about Cambridge that I felt I couldn't just criticise. I felt I should try to do something positive as an alternative to consider. Because I'm not an expert in transport, the first thing I felt I needed to do was partner with people who are experts. So very early on in the initiative, once I developed the initial concept, I got in touch with people that are involved with Rail Future, which has a long history of planning of the rail system in the UK. And also, very recently, we've formed a strategic partnership with a group called UK Tram. UK Tram is the industry body for light rail in the UK. And they have a great depth of expertise. One of our principal advisors is Ian Brown. He was the person that established and saw through to completion the Docklands Light Railway. He was the managing director for TfL Rail at that time. And he has looked at our proposals in detail and he thinks that they are credible. So that's a little bit of background. Cambridge Connect is an informal initiative. We don't have a structure as such. It's really interested people who like the concepts and want to see these sorts of ideas advanced in Cambridge. Okay, so the background, and I've got about 10 minutes, so I'll probably sort of gallop through things and we can ask questions later. The first thing I want to do is set the whole problem in context, and it's really about the scale and the pace of growth. The pace of growth is in the order of doubling the population of Cambridge over a 15-year period. Now, I'm not saying that all of those people, the 120,000 people that are coming into the Cambridge region, are all going to be coming into Cambridge City. But the models predict that 120,000 new people will be coming into the Cambridgeshire region in the sort of near vicinity in the next 15 years. So this poses a major challenge, and I think it actually causes us to think about, well, what kinds of solutions are appropriate for that scale of challenge. And came with quite a shock actually when I first learnt about that figure a year ago. Until then I was blissfully unaware that this was coming down the line. But actually, if you look at the data, I can be pretty confident this is going to happen, and we really need to plan for it, and we need to plan now. I thought I'd begin by just briefly recapping the City Deal plans to sort of place things in context. So, as we all know, broadly speaking, it's a bus-based solution, and that solution involves bus lanes, busways, coming in on the radial routes into Cambridge, Piston Road, Milton Road, A1307 in the south. And there's also these concepts called orbitals, which are in the mix. Broadly speaking, the solutions are all surface-based and they're all centred around using buses in different ways. However, when I saw the original City Deal plans, I was very concerned because the question I had was, well, what happens to these buses when they get to the city centre? And in a city like Cambridge, which has a medieval street system and very limited parking space and space for any vehicles, how's that going to play out in the scenario where we've got that kind of population growth over the next 15 years? So the City Deal does have a solution to this, and that solution involves closing the main streets in the city centre at peak time. And the idea with that solution is that will allow the buses to run freely, and therefore people will transfer out of their cars onto buses and they'll be able to get to their destinations. So that's the solution on the table from the City Deal. But I think we're all aware that many people in the city are not really satisfied with that kind of approach. I did some calculations for how many buses are we talking over a 15-year period. So I've looked at the commuter data and then projected that ahead to 2031. At the moment, we have 125 buses coming into the city centre at peak time every day. And that number is based on the timetable. I simply went through all the timetables and counted up how many buses do we presently have. If we look at the numbers in 2031, 15 years' time, we can do a simple calculation and work out how many buses will be coming into this city centre and circulating. And the sort of number we get is between 200 and 300 buses per hour in the city centre. Now, you could, argue, well, some of the buses might go to Admirals and some might go elsewhere, but broadly speaking, that's the big picture. So I had a question about, well, how is that going to work, particularly in a city like Cambridge, where we value the heritage and the landscape within the city very highly. And is it sustainable? Having looked at those sort of numbers, I thought, well, what's an alternative to this approach? Is there an alternative? Could we do this differently? And I looked at light rail as a possible alternative solution. The reason I chose light rail is because looking at the data, it shows that light rail is actually twice as energy efficient as buses. So they can convey more people for a lot less energy than by bus. And for that reason, and probably because I'm an environmental consultant, I think that's good for the environment and it's something that we should be thinking about in the long term. The other reason I chose light rail is because there's many examples of it. It's a proven technology. There's over 300 light rail systems throughout Europe. So we should have confidence that that type of solution is appropriate, or could be. I looked at, one of the first questions that many people ask me is, well, yeah, but Cambridge is too small for a light rail system. So, it's not going to work here. But actually, there's many examples of light rail in small towns or cities. Zan is a good example. Virtually the same size as Cambridge. I put a flyer out earlier in the evening, which you can look at the numbers. It's very similar to Cambridge. They have a metro system, they have light rail, and they have a ridership of 40 million passenger journeys on that system per year. And one of the reasons they have such a high ridership is 40% of the travelling public use the light rail system as a means of getting about the city. In Cambridge, we have 8% using buses, so the use of public transport is very different. So there's a number of benefits to light rail, and I won't elaborate on those in view of the time that I've got tonight, but you can look at more information about those benefits on our website. Probably the most important ones just to highlight here is the reliability, and it's fast, and it has high capacity and it's very scalable for the future. So what are we actually proposing? And what we're suggesting is that a light rail network could be developed in Cambridge. And earlier in the year we put out some ideas about what sort of form that could take, and based on feedback from the public and also experts sort of talking to people at Rail Future, we've refined that model a little bit further, and we've prioritised a line that we call the Isaac Newton line, referencing the heritage of Cambridge. It would start at the Girton interchange, and I'll come back to that shortly, but it would run overland through the West Campus, round about the Cavendish. It would go underground, and we're advocating a tunnel. We think that the tunnels are the only practical solution in the inner city. They are a lot more expensive, but if you want to solve the problem, you might need to make an investment. The tunnel would be 3.2 kilometres in length, and it would go to the central rail station, with stops at areas like University Library, the city centre, and Parker's Peace. From the central rail station, which is the key connection into the heavy rail network, it would extend southward down to Addenbrooks and out to the M11. And on this route, we would suggest that the existing busway could be easily converted to a light rail. We wouldn't have to do that, but it would make for an integrated system if you had a light rail all the way. And then from Addenbrooks, it would extend through Sawston and then out to the area of Granta Park. And the reason we've extended it out in that direction, which is admittedly relatively low population area of the region, there's a lot of business activity out here and there's a lot of potential for growth and development. And let's face it, we do need to plan for growth. This is going to happen, so we need to be thinking about that. Of course, that line wouldn't address all needs in Cambridge, so we've suggested some extensions. I think I skipped a couple of slides too quickly there. So extension A was out to the northeast side of Cambridge, Newmarket Road area, Science Park. The other extension could go to Fulbourn, and then an extension following the A14, and that would essentially make it a circle line, which would join back up at the Girton interchange. The reason the Girton interchange is selected as a key point is because it's a critical junction on the strategic road network, east-west and north-south, and also we're thinking about the Oxford to Cambridge Expressway, which is currently being planned as part of national infrastructure development. Longer term, or depends on finance and how that all plays out, but there's potential for extensions out to Camborne, following the A428, possibly integrating in with East-West Rail. And there's also potential to extend out towards Haverhill, a key population centre in the south-east. Now, why have we suggested those particular extensions rather than any others? If you look at the existing rail network, it already serves the northwest and out to Newmarket and also in the southwest region quite well. Yes, you could have more stations, but let's make use of that existing rail network. Time is of the essence, and I'm running out of it, but roughly 9 minutes from the Girton interchange into the city centre, 3 minutes from the station to the city centre, 15 minutes from the periphery into the centre if you were to use this light rail network. Another important factor is, well, how accessible are the stations to people where they live and where they work? So I did a simple calculation of the distance from any given station on the network to within the residential and employment centres of Cambridge. And what the figures show is that 1/3 of the city would be within a 4-minute walk of a station, or a 2.5-minute cycle ride. Almost 3/4 of the city would be within about an 8-minute walk. And 91% of the city would be within a 20-minute walk or about an 8-minute cycle ride. Now, if you think about that, it's transformative, or potentially transformative in terms of how people move about the city. And I'm coining that the green print for a sustainable city. Another thing that we all have to live and cope with in Cambridge is tourism. 5 million tourists visit Cambridge per year, and many of those come by coach. We think that there's potential to put a coach station out on the M11 and use the light rail line to convey the tourists into the centre. It'd be 15 minutes from there to the centre, and we think that would be beneficial for all reasons. So the big question, well, how much is all this going to cost? And the numbers are huge, but I think affordable. We've done some preliminary calculations, not detailed cost-benefit analysis at this stage, and we're calling for that. But based on other projects and sort of rough figures for how much it costs to do light rail per kilometre, we get a figure of about 626 million for the Newton line, which is the one that runs from the Girton interchange to Granta Park. So that's a little bit more than the city deal funding that's on the table. If you were to do the extensions, that is another 600 million, so you're looking at 1.2 billion. And then if you were to extend further out to Camborne and Haverhill, you're looking at a figure sort of approaching probably 1.9 billion. Now these figures are large, and I fully acknowledge that, and certainly not possible within the city deal. However, we should think about what sort of investment is necessary, and also what's done elsewhere. So the Nottingham net, for example, was 850 million, and that has been transformative for the city. We're currently spending about 1.7 billion on upgrading the A14. So I would ask, is spending 1.7 billion justified in the mix of the whole of Cambridge and how we could transform it for the future? I believe it is. And how will we pay for it? So I'm not going to go into these numbers about journeys because we're not out of time. But just to highlight the headline figure, and this is extremely conservative, but the annual revenue that we calculate on the basis of a £1.20 per journey fare is about 17 million per year annual income. That's not a great deal, but when you think that that figure excludes all tourists, we've not taken that into account. It also excludes non-commuter journeys, and the Cambridge Access study has shown us that actually 75% of journeys made in Cambridge are not for commuting. So this figure of 17 million is purely commuting. So in reality, that number would probably more double in terms of annual income. And then in terms of affordability, everything changes. So the question was asked at the start, is Cambridge Light Rail an alternative for Cambridge Transport? I would say yes, it is. We have been talking to experts in finance, and they inform us that there are ways in which this could be financed over a 30-year to 60-year period, so it is achievable. And I think that's the responsible approach for Cambridge, because it is so special. And just a final thought, why are we doing this? It is about us to some extent, but really it's about making an investment for future generations. Thank you.